My dad died this year. I bet I'm the first person to ever start a stewardship talk with that. But a lot of you already know where I'm going here. My dad, Larry House, was both an incredible public speaker and someone who was unbelievably dedicated to teaching people about being good stewards. When he died, many of you told me that I was just like him, and you're absolutely right. We have pretty much an identical sense of humor, similar speaking voices even, and I look more and more like him every day. But I should get to my point. Since Dad was such a big stewardship supporter and a great public speaker, and it is All Saints Day, it only seems fitting that my talk today should revolve around him somehow. So I'm going to share with you today 2 ways in which Dad and I are similar in our stewardship. Well, my dad spoke about giving money to the church, and he did it a lot. He had a lot of stories, quotes, and phrases. He regularly started talks with, "God doesn't need your money." And then he quickly followed it up with, "But we need to support the ministries of our church." One of his favorites was, "If you believe, as I do, that everything we have is a gift from God, then really your decision isn't about how much you should give. It's about how much you should keep." I'm not quite that philosophical. My sister is a pastor. I got my MBA. My dad was, and I am, a very practical guy. I'd love to stand up here and tell you that I'm really passionate about tithing, but I would be lying through my teeth. I believe, and I think he'd concur, that you've got to do what works for you. For my wife Sarah and I, with a 3-year-old in daycare, and hopefully one day going to college, a kind of sketchy roof, and if I'm being honest, still paying off some of the mistakes we made when we were young and stupid, 10% just isn't practical for us. But Sarah and I have talked, and we've agreed on a number that works for us. We've set ourselves a bit of a challenge, and it's gone a bit above what's really comfortable. Because this church is something we really believe in. And here's why. Believe it or not, I was not always the incredibly confident, suave, good-looking guy you see in front of you today. I know, it's hard to believe, right? But trust me. When we moved from Gettysburg to Plymouth Meeting, I was in the 7th grade, and it was not easy. Middle school is not a good time to be trying to make new friends. But because, actually, the pastors Kaiser were the pastors at Upper Dublin at the time, my parents were friends with them, we came and right away we joined this church. And it was the one place where I, the incredibly geeky new kid, really felt at home. I was unconditionally and totally welcomed. In youth group, there was no in crowd. Nobody cared if I didn't have the latest Abercrombie jeans or the newest Nikes. It seems kind of stupid now, I'm not going to lie. But at the time, this was huge. It was a very real expression of God's love for a 13-year-old boy. I've carried on with the Upper Dublin youth group, now volunteering a bit, in hopes that some other kid can have the same experience I did, of feeling God's love through the kids around them. Thanks in no small part to Ray, this ministry has now exploded, and the kids from Upper Dublin are traveling far and wide to share God's love with those in our church and out. More recently, when Dad died, the outpouring of love and support from the people of this church was unbelievable. From the visits, to the cards, from people I don't even know, to mountains of food, to the wonderful folks who organized and directed and fed all of the hundreds of people who came for Dad's funeral. This was an incredible ministry. Truth be told, I actually haven't had a chance to thank many of you. So thank you for that. It was unbelievably helpful and a huge support in that really tough time. This church is really the kind of place with people, experiences, and ministries that Sarah and I really want to get behind and support. So we volunteer our time as Sunday school teachers and with the youth group, and we've challenged ourselves to give a bit more than is really comfortable, even if it isn't quite the 10%. One of the differences between Dad and I is that I'm much more technologically savvy than he was. If you need an Excel formula, I'm your guy. Lucky for me, online bill pay has been around pretty much since I've been paying bills. So since Sarah and I graduated and we've been able to support the church, we've been using Simply Giving. Dad was a much more recent convert. We'll say he wasn't an early adopter of online bill pay. In fact, Mom's still writing some checks for thinking that she shouldn't be writing checks for, but I'm working on it. However, one of the few things that was paid on was Mom and Dad's giving to the church. Like me, Dad did a fair bit of traveling, and I imagine that one of the reasons that they use slightly simply giving is just like mine. Aside from this is unbelievably convenient, you don't even think about it. You can make sure you're supporting the ministries of Upper Dublin, even when you're not here in person. Folks, when I tell you this is unbelievably easy, I am not lying to you. It's one very simple form. You fill out the form, you sign the form, you attach a check, and you hand it in. In fact, you could probably skip the fill out the form piece. If you attach a check and sign the form, Bruce will take care of it for you. That's it. This way, you can ensure that this church that you love and you care about and you find so meaningful to you is being supported, even when you're away on business, or at the shore, or at a Penn State game, or wherever you go. So there's two takeaways that I want to leave you with today. First is that we've picked an amount that works for Sarah and I, and we've made it automatic. And the second is that Sarah and I love and value and contribute to this church because it and the work it does are unbelievably important to us. And even though, as Dad would say, God doesn't need our money, we need to give money to support the ministries of our church. From middle school up through right now, and I know into the future, this church family has been here for me, and now it's here for Sarah and Jonah. And we want to support the ministries that have been here and make sure that they're here for others too. Thanks be to God.